Coming soon, the Canon EOS R5 to my desk. So in the rest of this video I'm going to talk about my journey towards the R5. We're going to go through my findings, how I arrived at my decision, the information I stumbled across on the way, and some things to look forward to once I get my camera. So was it a difficult decision? I was coming from, most recently the EOS R, but prior to that I had a 5D Mark II, well Mark III actually, 5D Mark III and a 7D Mark II. And when I sold the 5D Mark III when I moved to the EOS R, and I really noticed a step up in resolution of that sensor. I think a lot of EOS R users are extremely happy with that camera, and I certainly was, and in some ways disappointed that I had to sell it, but then I wanted to get ahead of the game before too many of them were sold, and with people moving towards either the R6 or the R5. So I no longer own that camera, but I was reluctant to take a step back in resolution. Now I understand that the R6 at 20 megapixels has bigger pixels and better potential for low light, and it probably would have filled my needs. But I particularly wanted the higher megapixel, and the reason being, I take a lot of wildlife photography. It's not my only genre, but I take a lot of wildlife photography, and the ability, I don't have the disposable cash to buy some of these bigger lenses, the Mega 500 and 600 2.8s. I really don't have that sort of disposable income. And as a result, like many wildlife photographers, they end up having to crop into their image. And if you crop into it, and once you start cropping in to try and achieve that, you start to lose resolution. I was hoping, and certainly was my experience in moving to the EOS R with a 30 megapixel sensor, I'm hoping to see a similar improvement when I move to the 45 megapixel sensor of the EOS R5. Now in moving to the EOS R5 or 6, I obviously had to do due diligence, and I certainly watched all the early product releases. I watched all the Canon ambassadors, and I watched the reaction from YouTube. This was a more recent search on the EOS R5, and as you can see, we're starting to see a lot more positive reviews coming out. And in fact, as days go on, we're seeing much more positive news coming out about the camera. So let's talk about stress testing. Now, stress testing is an established process in the industry, and it allows you to find out where the limits are of any technology. And what it allows you to do is to design a workflow around those and mitigations for them. I don't have a problem with that. It's an established process. It's something that YouTubers seem to dwell on now. And where I do have an issue is where they leave it at that, and they dwell on the negativity, and they feed on the negativity, and they feed the trolls. Personally, I'd like to see a YouTube channel that told you how to get around these, or how to get the best out of the camera, how to design workflows, how to achieve your end goals. At the end of the day, it's a tool, and it's how you use it. If you use it badly, you'll get bad results. And if you use it beyond its design limits, you'll get bad results. Clickbait bloggers and YouTube channels have done us a bit of a disservice here. Canon were quite open about the overheating potential in their cameras, and they released a table which was available early on. Hold on a moment. Now personally, I think Canon have been very upfront about this. You can see here they've got all the filming modes for the R5 and the R6. They're giving the approximate shooting times for 23 degrees centigrade and 73 degrees Fahrenheit. And on the R5, all of the times they give are in excess of the normal cut-off time for the camera. On the R5, the HQ and the 8K modes are limited by time, and they have got their 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 35 minutes, 25 minutes running down. The thing to bear in mind is that full sensor width 4K 30 is unaffected by heat, and you'll be able to film all day or within the limits of your battery and the timer that you may need to reset. Similarly, the APS-C crop, which is 5.1 oversampled, is not affected by heat. So again, you can continue in those modes. It's only really the HQ, the 8K, the 120 modes. These are modes that other mirrorless cameras do not have at present. So it's no surprising that they are available to us, but limited. Getting back to what's been said about it, I mean, one or two of the bloggers, EOS HD and Andrew Reid has been particularly sounding off everywhere. In fact, he's calling for a class action to be raised against Canon, which I think is a bit of a joke, to be honest. He's referring in a post he made on Twitter, where I queried him. He said, what would you do if you bought a car and you found out that you took it for a run and you found out you had to come home at 20 miles an hour? And I said, well, I have bought a car and found I'd had to do that, and it was because it had gone into limp mode, and it had gone into limp mode because it wanted to protect the engine. And it's the same situation here. Use it out with its operating parameters, it'll go into limp mode, so we call it. But that limp mode means you can continue taking photographs, you can continue taking standard 4K and standard HD movies. I don't see a problem with that, and in my use case, that is not a problem. Another YouTuber that tweeted about this was Gerald, and now I value his opinion, and I trust his opinion. I enjoy watching his channel. However, he sent out a tweet that said, after 30 to 40 pictures and 0 minutes recording showing on the camera, that was about the extent of his tweet. That got a lot of traction. I queried him on that, and I said, what do you mean? Do you mean you were unable to continue with anything? He says, no, I could have continued taking photographs, and I could have continued in 4K standard mode. And I said, well, why didn't you say that? I think we all know. However, I'll reserve judgment until Gerald releases his video, because normally he's very fair. So I expect that when he releases his video, he will go into that in detail. But this is just an example of how people don't tell the full story. And a lot of these headlines that you're seeing don't tell the full story. The fact is that the camera could have continued in 4K. It could have continued taking photographs, and to my mind, that is not a problem. Of course, it was marketed on the basis of being able to do 8K, but from the get-go, Canon have been upfront about this and said limitations on it. And if you use it within those limitations, you'll be fine. Now, this is the difference between professionals and amateurs reviewers. Because the professionals will know this, and the professionals will take the necessary precautions, and we'll talk about some of those. So talking about the contributors to heat and potential solutions, most professionals are aware of the overheating potential of these mirrorless cameras. If they are using a mirrorless camera, it's because it's a cheaper solution than using a cinema camera, and they have to work around the shortcomings. Now, those workarounds generally involve external power sources and external recording sources, both of which will have a marked difference on the overheating potential for the camera, and professionals know that. And so it's not a problem to them to work around that and have this. In fact, if you look at the limitations, particularly in the 8K mode, you're going to be limited by storage capacity within the camera. Even a 512 gigabit card will only store you, I'm talking off the top of my head here, I believe it's a maximum of, it's around an hour of 8K video. So if you're looking to record more than that, and you will be if you're movie making, you potentially use a fraction of your footage in the final film, you're going to record that to an external recorder. Similarly, a lot of the heat that's generated in the camera comes from drawing down the power from the battery. Now, the things that draws power down from the battery are the autofocusing and the sensor readout and the filming mode processing. All of that can draw the power at a phenomenal rate, which can cause the battery to warm up. And this is why an external source for the battery is useful, and professionals know that. Now, I'm well aware that external recorders and blowers and fans and external power supplies all cost money, and that's not something that myself, well, as a normal photographer, I'm likely to even consider. And take my use case. My main interest is photography. I may well take the odd clip. In fact, taking 8K clips to extract a 35 megapixel frame is something that interests me. But I'm never likely to be stressing the camera beyond its design operating requirements. So personally, I don't have any concerns about this. Professionals, however, regularly take a product beyond its design limits, particularly when they're using mirrorless cameras in place of cinema cameras, and so they understand this and they will take the necessary precautions. But interestingly, there's a couple of solutions been shown already on the internet, and we'll move on to them. So Canon applied for a patent at the end of last year, and that patent is shown here. You can see the airflow around the adapter going out at the top, coming in at the bottom. There's some symbol that represents a fan in the middle at the bottom, and it seems to represent a fan. On the oblique view, you can see the adapter in position and the lens then on it, and the venting in the adapter. Looking at another photograph, this is a side view. You can see the same arrangement. You see an adapter, you see a lens on the front, you can see the airflow around, you can see the vents at the top. So Canon applied for a patent on this at the end of last year, so it looks like they were already aware of the potential for overheating on this. And in fact, it looks like not only Canon were aware, because there's another product, and this is from a company called Tilta, and they've been very quick to the market with an already working example of a fan attached to the back of the camera, and also a cage, which is obviously a lot of professionals use the camera with a cage. So it has a cage around it, and it has built into that cage is a fan arrangement at the back. Another view of it is here. And you can tell from this that this company must have had access to data long before the camera was released to be able to come up with this product. So I personally think that Canon have been aware of this potential, and they have at least 2 solutions coming along for it. So I'm looking forward to seeing those solutions. So let's talk about IBIS. Canon have been working on an IBIS system for some time now, and I think we can be certain that they will have tested this against all of their existing stabilised lenses, and the conjunction of these two are going to give us 8 stops of stabilisation, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to. Something else I'm really looking forward to is the ability it's going to give you to use non-stabilised lenses, and there's some old lenses, there's some new lenses which don't have stabilisation, and they're really going to benefit from IBIS on these cameras. And I'm certainly looking forward to using these lenses. I've got one or two which I think will benefit from it, and in later videos I think we'll go through some of that once the camera arrives. I have seen Canon reps talking about this, and they are saying that third-party lenses will work with the IBIS, but it's up to third-party manufacturers to ensure compatibility, and it's not something Canon will bother themselves with. I think that's understandable. Where I have seen some issues with it is in filming modes. I think Peter McKinnon was one to show this, and there's a jello effect in the extremities of the photograph, and this is a well-known feature of IBIS that is not normally seen on lens-only stability. So I wouldn't be surprised if there will be some future firmware update that allows the lens to be used independently of the IBIS. I'm unclear at the moment whether it exists there, but filming is not my main interest. Now, eye autofocus and dual pixel focusing is something that Canon are known for. Dual pixel 2 moves that to the next step. I've certainly seen footage that is absolutely incredible. Tony Northrop, of all people, produced a video, and he showed the acquisition of the target, the tracking of birds, the tracking of eyes down to insect level, being able to spot birds in dense foliage. It was truly amazing what the camera was doing there. Now, his wife pointed out that the ability to acquire the image and the ability to focus on the image are two different things. And I think that's something that Sony have had for a while as well. Their autofocus always looked impressive in acquiring the image, but the hit rate wasn't particularly high. I'm sure Sony people are going to argue otherwise. But Tony, having been a long time Sony shooter, is saying that he's absolutely astounded by what Canon have achieved in this. And this, and the IBIS and the increased resolution of the sensor are the things that truly attracted me to this camera. So thanks for watching this video. I've attempted to give you the benefit of some of my research on this product, on these cameras, and some of the thinking behind my decision to buy the Canon R5. So hopefully it will be arriving on my desk in the next week, and I'll certainly be posting some more videos here when it does. So hopefully you'll join my channel, subscribe, and move along on this journey with me. Thanks again.